Welcome to the Vibes Del Alma podcast with Ashley. So, this is my February episode. Hopefully, I don't have to do much editing, so we'll see how that goes because I'm a new mom and I can only do so much with so much time. But I want to continue doing this because I enjoy talking. So, here I have an episode on building a spiritual practice and just some thoughts that I've had that I want to kind of like share in case anybody's curious, right? So the first thing that I want to talk about, and I have like some bullet points that I wrote because your girl needs to get organized. The first thing I'm going to talk about is closed practices versus open practices, right? So the ones that are open, it's like you don't have to ask permission, you don't have to get initiated into them. You do not need to know, for lack of a better term, you don't need to know shit about fuck. You can just go for it and learn as you go, even though sometimes it's always good for you to research what you want to do in the first place so you know what you're getting into. Open practices, like you don't need to ask permission. In closed practices, you do. So a lot of close practice, well, some of the more known close practices would be anything under the African traditional religions, the ATRs, as well as anything that has to do with like Santeria or anything that can go back to Yoruba. There's also different shamanic practices or indigenous practices that you literally cannot do unless you're initiated. One of the ones that I love to bring up is like smoking from a chalupa, which is a pipe, and you would smoke tobacco from that pipe. And for you to do it ceremonially, you're supposed to be gifted a chalupa from a shaman or someone that would pretty much give you the permission to actually be able to do that practice. And the same thing with icaros or songs. You're supposed to get taught those from someone. So an elder is supposed to gift you the knowledge of being able to sing that Icaro and that song for you to be able to do it for other people. It's supposed to be like the example that I can think of and the way that it's usually done is you go and you help an elder, you help set up their rituals, or you help clean up their home, or you help and study under them, and then eventually they'll just like, hey, like, do you want to learn this song? And then they teach you the song. So you're not supposed to just go on like Google and like look up a song and find it and just sing it. It's supposed to be passed down to you that way in some places. Another thing would be like if you want to do ayahuasca or you want to do temazcales or sweat lodges, you're supposed to go through an initiatory process to be able to host those for other people. You're not just supposed to come together and just do it like willy-nilly, whatever that term is. You're supposed to be someone that has been initiated into the craft to be able to hold space for other people in that manner. So those are some of the close practices. And the thing is that today we have so much at our disposal. We can just search for anything. We have access to almost everything. And with AI in the mix, like information is just even more readily accessible. And we are bypassing the fact that a lot of these things need permission before you're able to do those. And you can get permission a few ways. The most legitimate way for you to get permission is from a shaman or a master, but not just like a influencer. No, like someone that has grown up in that lineage, someone that is a part of that lineage, someone that is actually a medicine person, or a medicine man, or a curandero, curandera, whatever you want to call that. Like you would want to work with someone that is legitimately in that field and in that title. Because a lot of people nowadays can call themselves masters and can call themselves shamans. It's a word that you can give yourself, but that doesn't mean that you're actually that person. So there are some people in the social media world that are more on the influencer side that end up appropriating spiritual paths and then selling them on to other people. So, for example, something that I do when I'm like, oh, I want to learn about womb massage, which I haven't done yet, but it is in my mind for maybe someday. But womb massage comes from Mayan culture. It comes from South America and Central America, from my knowledge. If I'm wrong, go ahead and feel free to like educate me more because I don't mind being educated and learn more. as far as like what massage goes and where the origins of it come from. But for example, when I look for womb massage, because I have a license for massage therapy, you can get taught how to do womb massage within massage therapy, but it's like it's trademarked. But how can you trademark an indigenous practice? And then everybody that I would look up that would teach it wouldn't be someone of the complexion of South or Central America. And I'm not saying that you have to look a certain way or be a certain way, but it's just like the impression that I would get from people didn't feel like very, very authentic. And I was able to find people that do teach womb massage. It's not under the system of massage therapy continuing education, but it does come from the root of where it's supposed to come from. So they would teach it in the closest way possible to that indigenous practice, that shamanic root, that cultural root, right? So it's not appropriated. They don't change the message to make you feel better about yourself. They just give it to you how it's supposed to be done. And one of them was in Guatemala, and then another one could have been done online from this woman that has a business, Seed to Body. And she just opened up another one in collaboration with somebody else in regards to birth and birth education, and womb massage is also a part of that. So I can put that in the show notes about Seed to Body and like how to find the website. I did a doula training with her, and it was really knowledgeable. I did the doula training more so for me to learn about pregnancy and my pregnancy journey, and I really appreciated it because this woman, Aya Maria from Seed to Body, is very knowledgeable not only in the scientific side of birth and the medical system when it comes to the pregnancy and the birth and the postpartum, but she's also very knowledgeable on the spiritual side as well. So it was very beautiful to be able to learn all of this as I was going through my pregnancy and as I was leading up to my birth. And also, I went back and looked at it in some when I was in my postpartum, and it helped me a lot in understanding things because I like to learn. I like to learn. But, anyways, so initiations from a legitimate person is one whether you can get permission into doing a practice or being a part of practice spiritually. Another one is through dreams. Now, I'm gonna give a warning for you to be like impeccable or like for you to to have some integrity in this, right? Because like anybody can be like, oh, I had a dream and I was initiated into this because of my dream, da da da. Okay, anybody can do that. And I can't really go up to you and be like, all right, what dream are you talking about? Because there's no way that I can go into your own brain, right? But don't make it up. Like, be honest about whether or not you received a dream that gave you instructions on what you can do and how to do it, or that gave you the permission to be able to start doing something else, or that gave you the permission to start working with a plant or whatever, right? Like, don't make something out of nothing. Be honest with yourself. Because again, we are in a place where a lot of information is readily available. And if you just jump into something that you don't have necessarily the permission to do, it could bite you on the booty. Like, for example, I'm going to talk about the example that I thought about when I was writing this is from Murders in the Building. I think it's season 4. So if you're watching Murders in the Building and you haven't finished season 4, please, spoiler alert, I'm gonna talk about it. If you don't care, then continue listening. But if you do care, you might want to skip forward a little bit. But in season 4, there is a dude that is a really, really good stunt double, right? Like he could become if anybody's seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he could become the Brad Pitt of stunt doubles. He could be the best of the best. Um, but he wanted to be a writer. He's like, F it, my natural gifts of stunt doubling, but I'm not gonna follow that. I'm gonna be a writer. I want to be a writer. And I'm not saying that you can't follow your dreams. I'm just saying that, sometimes you have beautiful gifts, and he forcefully wanted to be a writer instead of learning the craft, getting taught, taking the time to find permission or to be able to find a good teacher for him to be able to build up his own craft. He forcefully wanted to be a writer and killed somebody else and stole that person's script and made it look like if it was his own and submitted it to companies for them to be able to create a TV show. Now, it did get approved as a TV show because the person that wrote it did a really good job. But then this dude killed the person that wrote it and took it as his own. And he didn't know and didn't think about the fact that when it gets approved, he might have to edit it. He might have to change some things because you never know. So throughout the season, he needed to make edits to the script that he wrote, which he didn't write. And eventually they found out that he didn't write that script, that he killed the person that wrote that script, and he was trying to pass off as that person. So all of that to say that when you forcefully try to do something, and this includes in the spiritual realm, eventually you're going to get got. Eventually you're going to get found out that you're a fraud. I know that also with the whole, I forgot what transit it was, but a lot of gurus were coming out like they were doing things that were creepy. There's if you really want to be able to be in a spiritual position where you're doing things beautifully and you're able to change your life and change other people's lives, like don't forcefully go into it. It takes time, it takes practice, it takes knowledge, it takes TLC, tender love and care. It really does. And it'll go by super fast. Like it's a process, just like life, everything's a process. And if you honestly like really connect with yourself and you really take the time to know who you are, then it'll be easier for you to also accept the gifts that you have and know what you need to work on. Like if you really still wanted to be a writer and you know that you're really good at stunt doubling, but you're not good at writing, maybe pivot. Maybe you can write a child's book, or maybe you can write like you can find a niche underneath writing where you can still follow your dreams that would be good for you, that would be permissible for you without having to like forcefully take on something else. There are some people that are really good at writing fiction, but they might not be able to translate to nonfiction and vice versa. So just know what's good for you. And you have to trust yourself. And if you go to sleep and you're like, oh, like honorable ancestors, elevated ancestors, God, angels, whatever higher power you believe in, and you're like, oh, I want to work with tobacco, for example. Um, just be mindful of what dream you get, what's the response, if it's a yes, if it's a no. And you have to trust the yes as well as the no. You have to be ready for the no. So if you ask a friend for advice, and you're like, oh, should I do this? And they're like, no. And you continue asking them questions and they continue giving you the advice, but you literally go against their advice. Eventually, they're not going to want to give you any more advice. And the same thing happens with your spiritual team. The same thing happens with your own intuition. And the sad thing is that your intuition is your body. So when you don't listen to your body, your intuition, you're not listening to yourself. And the more that you go against yourself, the more distrust you have, the more weird your life is going to be. And even then, like if you don't go by what your spiritual intuition, whatever advice is giving you, eventually they're not gonna answer. You're not even gonna answer yourself. You're not gonna know. You're gonna go through down spirals, anxiety. And I'm not here diagnosing everybody. You should go to a medical professional for that one. But I'm just saying, like, there are implications for you going against your own best judgment. And sometimes our nervous system gets hijacked with other emotions that prioritize what you want to do in the moment. And if that's the case for you and you feel like this is kind of like hitting a spot, then I would recommend that seek some trusted medical people that can give you some licensed individuals that can give you some better advice or some books that can help you along those lines. With whatever it is that you're specifically looking for, or a podcast, super easy, super simple, or a YouTube channel. YouTube video. There's so many out there. Um, but yes, that's my next point. Trust the yes and the no. So I'm gonna give you a couple of cool stories about me trusting a no and then trusting a yes. So I love mushrooms and I also love pterodactyls. And well, I love mushrooms, but not the ones to eat cuisine wise. But anyways, so I love mushrooms and I love taro, and I found a mushroom taro deck that I loved. And it was around my birthday, I think. And it was around summertime, and I went to a store and I was like, oh, I can treat myself for this. I really like it. I like looked at the deck. I loved the imagery. I really connected with the deck. Like it seemed like it would be like a beautiful made match in heaven. And something that I do is that I always ask yes and no with a pendulum or just myself when I'm buying something spiritually or just in general. And it said no. And I was like, let me get another pendulum. The pendulum said no again. I asked 3 times and each time it said no. And I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why. I'm like, I really like this deck. And we connected. I don't understand why, but everything that I did went to the no, and I'm not gonna go against myself. I'm not gonna go against, God or my angels or my elevated ancestors. Like they know the layout. They can see more than I can see, right? So I'm like, well, it's no for a reason. Eventually, we did like a gift exchange in my family, and my sister got me a gift, and that gift was this exact same mushroom tarot deck. And she told me that over the summer she had seen it and she bought it and she was holding on to it this whole time to give it to me during Christmas time. So around the time that I went to get this tarot deck for myself for my birthday, my sister also went and got this tarot deck as a gift for me. And that's why I got the no. And that's a pretty cool story. It's a beautiful full circle moment, a beautiful story. And if you want stories like this, you need to listen to your yes and you need to listen to your no. You need to trust it and just go with it. One that was like a yes, like I got a yes was there was one time that I was unemployed and I was between two jobs. So one of them was like a substitute position, and another one was a medical front desk receptionist for a physical therapy office. And I remember trying to find information on how much I would get paid. And for the front desk, it was like it was like around $16. And then for the substitute position, I could only find like $10 a day or like $25 a day, like something like that. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. And then when I sat down and like divined on it, and I asked my ancestors and myself, it was like, you need to go with the substitute position. Like one of the messages was, if you keep doing what you used to do, you're not going to be able to get to a life where you're going to really enjoy your work. So it's like, stop doing the same thing and expecting a different result with the medical side. And the other thing is just like just go with the long-term substitute position. Just go into the substitute side. And then I remember getting the substitute position offer first. And I was like, well, Spirit said yes to the substitute position. I feel like I'm gonna get paid less with this one, but I'm gonna trust. I said yes. I said yes, and then I got the actual offer. And then it was a long-term substitute position, and long-term substitutes get paid the same salary as a teacher. They just don't have the benefits of PTO and vacation. So when I trusted that yes, I ended up at the time getting a job that was the highest paying job that I had up to that moment in my life. And I wouldn't have been able to have that opportunity if I would have followed my fear and my anxiety. And if I would have gone against myself and my intuitive and the divine answer that I received. And by following that yes, even though I was uncomfortable and I didn't really know any better, again, God, a higher power, your elevated ancestors, spirit angels, they can see more than you can see sometimes. And you can always ask to have them make things comfortable for you whenever you're making harder decisions. But again, both of these are full circle moments. Both of these are beautiful stories, but you can't get those stories if you don't listen to the yes and the no. Um, because you have to be able to trust yourself. Now, back to open and closed practices and just building a spiritual practice overall, there's a lineage, right? And everybody has a lineage. Every culture has a lineage. Are you Italian? Are you Irish? Are you Spaniard? Are you Arabic? Are you from South America, Central America? Are you Asian, Indian, etc.? There's so many other things that you can go down in this list, but every single country, every single culture has had some sort of indigenous, native to the land spiritual practice. And you just have to tap into yourself and into your DNA to be able to connect to that. Anyways, I'm just saying this because everybody can go back to some sort of culture. Everybody can go back to a more animistic and connected to nature spiritual practice. So just look at what your roots are, right? Like, where do you really come from? Where do your ancestors come from? Where did they immigrate from or emigrate from? All the good stuff. And just tap back into that. And if you're not really sure what the lineage is and it's not really readily accessible to you, or you're just not in a position to like really want to do that, some open practices that you can go down under is tarot. Even though tarotini did come from Italy, it is, especially nowadays with oracle decks, it is an open practice. There are symbols and images within tarot that only if you're initiated into different secret societies and sects would you know what they mean. But in general, the practice of reading tarot and oracle cards is an open practice. Another one is astrology. Anybody can just sit down and learn astrology and work with astrology. Another one is herbalism. So some practices within herbalism are closed. So just because there's like a ritual with a plant doesn't mean that you should do it, because sometimes those rituals fall under closed practices. But in general, every single ancestor, every single person from way back when, they had a connection to the land that they lived in, some sort of connection. So, what connection did your ancestors have to the land? What herbs or plants did they connect with? What flowers did they connect with? What spices did they use in their cooking? What herbs did they use in their cooking? And when you look at all of that, okay, what are some health benefits that those spices, plants, flowers, herbs have, right? So again, just be mindful. Herbalism is usually open, but not everything under herbalism is open. Some things are closed. So just, be mindful of that. Another thing that's definitely open is Hellenistic mythology or Hellenistic practices when it comes to like Roman and Greek gods and that sort of paganism. But it comes with a caveat. Like you need to make sure that you know what you're doing. You need to make sure that you know who you're connecting with. If you're wanting to connect with a deity or deity, however you pronounce that, you want to make sure that you know what you're working with because in the same way that you wouldn't just go up to your cranky old neighbor and ask them for sugar, and they'll be like, "Ugh." Like you wouldn't go up to a fury and ask them for a favor just out of nowhere. Like you have to build a relationship with this cranky old man. He has to have a sweet spot for you for him to be able to do things, right? And like in the same way, right, if you see someone that's beautiful, like a beautiful woman, she seems super nice, beautiful, like elegant, a little bit untouchable, and you go up to her and you're like, I need some relationship advice, girl. Like, I need you to help me get this man to fall in love with me, like quick. She's gonna look at you sideways and be like, who are you? Bye. Right? And in that same way, you want to just go up to Aphrodite and be like, yo, help me with my love life. Like, you need to build a relationship. Like you need to build a relationship. You need to know who you're working with because, I'm sure that some people have gone under that where they're like, oh, like that person looks really cool. They look like they're a vibe. I want to get to know them. And you get to know them and you're like, that who they are? Yikes. I'm just gonna walk away. So, in that same way, you need to know as much as you can about whoever you're wanting to build a relationship with before you start building that relationship when it comes to deities and energies. And someone that would be, if you're curious about what Hellenistic deity to work with, someone that would be pretty cool to help you is this astrologer named Angelica Cresci. I hope I said her last name right. It's Italian. She does an amazing deity exploration reading with astrology, where she can sit down with you and kind of tell you which deities or deities and energies would be more in alignment with who you are. So this would be a great reading to get with her if you're wanting to start a practice with Hellenistic gods and deities, or if you're just wanting to like pinpoint better who you should focus your attention on. That would be pretty cool. And I can also put that in my show notes. Um, but ultimately, all of this always comes back to yourself, right? If you want to build a spiritual practice, it needs to make sense to you and your ancestors. If you want to connect to a deity or an energy, it needs to also make sense to you and your ancestors. There are different things that are prioritized. Like, for example, like an example would be if you want to build a relationship with mermaids, but you don't know how to swim. It's like if your ancestors and you are like, you know what, you should build a relationship with these mermaids. It's like, well, first, before you do that, you need to learn how to deal with water first. You need to learn how to swim. You need to get these life skills first. And once you're able to be more prepared, then you can look at the mermaids, right? So in that same manner, just because you want to do something spiritually doesn't mean that you necessarily should. Like you need to have some sort of permission. And when it comes to open practices, that could be more so like self-permission. Um, but you want to be knowledgeable about what you're getting into. So always trust yourself. And sometimes there are moments where you don't know the full picture, and it's okay to take a breather. And it's okay to just come back to your body, come back to meditating, come back to some yoga, come back to some exercise, come back to just, I'm gonna table this for 3 days and come back to it later. Um, but at the end of the day, everything will always come back to you because ultimately, you are the guide of your life. You are the person feeling your own intuition. You are the person that's going to be undergoing all these spiritual experiences. You are the creator, creatress, creatrix of whatever livelihood and life path you're living. So, all of these things that you do, which are cool and they can seem like they're outside yourself, they're always a mirror of what's happening within you. So, you're always doing things to bring harmony to yourself and to trust yourself and to be stronger within yourself. Sometimes people like to look for outside energies and representations of things that they feel like they're lacking, but eventually you'll see that if you're worshiping something, it's because you're wanting to bring that part of yourself out more into the surface. And we all have that. So, just know that you are amazing and you're doing great and you are an amazing individual. You are someone that is very intuitive. And if you're listening to this and you're at this point, you're going to be great and you're going to do great. You just have to continue working on yourself, continue working on that self-trust and that self-empowerment. And in a blink of an eye, you're going to be exactly where you want to be without even realizing that you got there. So, thank you for listening to this. Thank you for being with me for another episode, building a spiritual practice. And until next time. Thank you for watching this episode with the Vibes Del Alma podcast. This is about building a spiritual practice, and if you really, really liked it, go ahead and share this with someone that you think might resonate with the information or you feel like might benefit from this information. Feel free to also like and subscribe. That way, you're in the loop for whenever I drop another podcast episode or just YouTube video overall. And yeah, thank you so much for being here.